everyone. Welcome back to the Your English podcast, the best way to improve your English.
It's great to be here. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something really core for, well, probably everyone listening. Learning English effectively.
Yeah, and specifically how to handle those common mistakes and frustrations that, let's face it, we all run into.
Absolutely. We hear it all the time, don't we? That feeling of maybe nervousness when you have to speak.
Oh, definitely. Or your mind just goes blank. The words disappear right when you need them. It's that feeling of being unsure. So common.
It really is. And, often when people feel stuck or like their progress is just crawling along,
Yeah.
it's usually not because they aren't trying hard enough.
Right. It often seems to boil down to something else.
Exactly. More often than not, it's about not having a clear plan, a strategy for how you're actually learning.
Okay, so that's what we want to tackle today. We're aiming to give you some really specific, actionable advice. Think of it like building a toolkit.
Mm-hmm. Tools you can start using right away to make your learning journey smoother, more efficient, and hopefully more enjoyable too. We've looked at quite a bit of material on this.
We have, and we want to focus on these key pillars that keep coming up. So we'll be digging into why strategy is just so vital.
Right. Like having a map, basically. And then setting goals, but goals that actually work, that motivate you.
Yeah, not just vague wishes. Then there's the whole consistency thing, the power of regularity, even small amount.
And mixing things up, using different methods to keep it fresh and cover all the bases.
Can't forget practice, obviously.
Yeah.
And crucially, how to think about mistakes. Because they will happen.
Oh, they will. And that's okay. And finally, we'll touch on mindset, that attitude that really helps learners succeed in the long run.
Sounds like a solid plan.
Yeah.
So let's kick off with strategy. I like this analogy one of our sources used. Learning English without a plan. It's like trying to build a house without blueprints.
That's such a great visual, isn't it? You might have all the bricks and materials, but without that plan, well, you might end up with something shaky. Or maybe nothing much at all.
Exactly. You could be putting in effort, okay, that it's not leading towards a finished house.
And that's where the frustration comes in, right? You feel busy, you feel like you're doing things, but you're not seeing the results you want. It can lead to burnout pretty quickly.
So the strategy provides that structure, that direction. It helps you know what to focus on and maybe what not to focus on right now.
Precisely. It helps you prioritize. Maybe you need to work on speaking confidence. Maybe it's understanding fast speech. Maybe it's specific grammar. A strategy helps you allocate your time effectively.
You see this with successful learners, don't you? Even if their plan changes over time, they usually start with some kind of framework.
Absolutely. They have a sense of purpose in their study sessions. It's not just random dabbling.
Okay, so how do we make this practical? It's not just an idea, right? The sources talked about putting concrete steps in place.
Yeah, like actually creating a weekly study schedule. It sounds simple, maybe even a bit basic, but it's powerful.
Making an appointment with yourself for English. I like that.
Exactly. You schedule meetings, you schedule workouts. Why not schedule your English learning? Treat it with that same level of importance.
And then tracking it using a diary or a planner.
Yes. Write down what you actually did. Spend 20 minutes on phrasal verbs. Listen to a podcast episode. Practice speaking with a partner.
Yeah.
It gives you that tangible record.
And you can look back and see, wow, I actually have been consistent. Or maybe, oops, I kind of slacked off last week.
Right. It builds accountability, and honestly, seeing that progress written down can be super motivating. It shows the effort is adding up.
But it's not rigid, is it? The strategy needs to be flexible. Life happens.
Oh, completely. And actually, analyzing your mistakes is a huge part of refining your strategy. That's something the sources really emphasize.
How so?
Well, if you keep making the same kind of error, say with verb tenses, that's data, isn't it? It tells you, okay, my current approach to tenses isn't quite working. I need to adjust my strategy.
So mistakes actually guide the strategy adjustment.
Exactly. They signal where you need to perhaps dedicate more time or try a different learning technique for that specific area.
And it needs to fit your life, right? Your schedule, your energy levels.
100%. What works for an early bird might not work for a night owl. If you have kids, your study time might look very different from someone who's single. The strategy has to be sustainable for you.
Makes sense. And setting smaller goals within the bigger plan, milestone.
Yeah, that's really helpful too. Instead of just aiming for fluency, which is huge and vague, set milestones like complete this intermediate grammar unit by next month, or be able to hold a 5-minute conversation about my hobbies.
Right. It breaks it down, makes it feel less daunting, and gives you wins along the way.
Exactly. Those mini successes fuel your motivation to keep going.
Okay, so to kind of wrap up the strategy point, it's the roadmap. It gives focus, helps manage time, and it's adaptable based on your progress and, yes, your mistakes. It really does seem foundational.
It absolutely is. Which leads us nicely into the next key area, setting clear goals. Because your strategy needs something to aim for.
Right. Goals are the destination on that roadmap. But again, not just, I want to learn English. Our sources were really clear on this.
That's an intention, which is great, but it's not a goal in the practical sense. Goals need to be, well, specific and measurable.
Measurable is key, isn't it? How do you know if you're getting closer if you can't measure it somehow?
Exactly. So instead of, I want to improve my vocabulary, which is, fine, but fuzzy.
Make it concrete, like, I will learn 15 new words related to work each week for the next 2 months.
Perfect example. It's specific work-related words, measurable, 15 per week, and time-bound, 2 months. You know exactly what you're aiming for and when.
Or maybe something grammar-focused. I want to finally understand and use conditional sentences correctly.
Okay, good start, but let's make it even more measurable. How about, I will complete the online module on conditionals and be able to correctly use the first and second conditional in written exercises with 80% accuracy within 3 weeks.
Okay. Adding that accuracy percentage and time frame makes it much clearer. You know when you've hit it.
Precisely. Or maybe it's exam focused. Not just prepare for TOEFL, but I will achieve a practice score of at least 90 on the reading section by the end of the month.
So this sounds a lot like that SMART framework that kept popping up in the sources.
It aligns perfectly with SMART, yes. It's such a useful acronym for goal setting. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Let's quickly unpack that. Specific, you know exactly what you're doing. Measurable, you can track it. Achievable, it's realistic, not impossible.
Right. Setting yourself up for failure with an impossible goal isn't motivating. Relevant, it actually matters for your overall reason for learning English. Is it for work, travel, personal interests?
And time-bound, setting that deadline, creates a bit of healthy pressure, maybe.
A sense of urgency, yeah. It prevents procrastination. And the sources really stress checking in on these goals regularly.
Right. Don't just set them and forget them. You need to assess. Am I on track? Are those 15 words sticking? Am I getting closer to that 80% accurate?
Exactly. And that regular assessment allows you to adjust your strategy if needed. Maybe the goal was too ambitious, or maybe you're smooshing it and need to aim higher.
It's dynamic. So these SMART goals, they act like powerful motivators. They give you direction, purpose, and that satisfying feeling of accomplishment when you tick them off.
Definitely. They transform that vague desire to learn into a concrete plan of action.
Okay, makes total sense. Now, what about regularity? Consistency. The sources seem to really hammer this point home.
They did. And often it was about the power of daily study, even if it's super short, like just 5 or 10 minutes.
Really? Just 5 minutes? It seems almost too little.
Well, think about the cumulative effect. 5 minutes every single day adds up much faster than one long, exhausting session once a week where you try to cram everything in.
Okay, I see that. And the sources mention it helps build habit.
Yeah.
And reduces stress.
Yeah, because it becomes part of your routine, like brushing your teeth. It's not this huge, daunting task you have to psych yourself up for. Just a small, consistent touch point with English. It keeps the language active in your brain.
So, less pressure, more routine.
Exactly. And it helps reinforce what you learned previously. It prevents that forgetting curve from taking hold quite so strongly.
So, finding those little slots in the day, maybe reviewing flashcards over breakfast.
Or listening to an English song, or short podcast on your commute. Even just thinking in English for a few minutes while you're waiting for something.
It's about weaving it into the fabric of your day, rather than it being the separate, isolated study time.
Precisely. And it has to be adaptable to your life, of course. If daily is impossible, then regular sessions several times a week are still far better than sporadic bursts. Find your rhythm.
And this routine might need to change as you get better, right?
Absolutely. What works for a beginner, maybe focusing on basic phrases, won't be enough for an intermediate learner who needs more complex input or speaking practice. You have to reassess and adjust your regularity and the content of those regular sessions.
I remember reading something interesting about missing even one session, how it can feel like a step back. Does that resonate?
It can feel that way, yeah. It sort of breaks the chain, the momentum. It's like physical exercise. Skipping one workout might not seem like a big deal, but if it becomes a habit, your fitness level drops. Language is similar. Consistency keeps those mental muscles working.
So the aim is really to minimize those missed days as much as possible. Keep the engine ticking over.
Exactly. Use those in-between moments. Waiting in line, quick vocabulary review on an app, doing chores, English podcast in your ears, commuting, audio lesson. Maximize those little pockets of time.
Okay, so the big message here is consistent, regular effort, even if it's small amounts, builds momentum and leads to steadier, more sustainable progress than infrequent cramming.
You got it. It's about the long game.
All right, moving on to the methods we use. The sources were pretty strong on not just sticking to one thing, right? Variety seems key.
Very key. Relying solely on, say, one textbook or one app can get boring, for one thing. But more importantly, it limits your exposure and the types of skills you develop.
Like learning an instrument again, you wouldn't only read music theory. You'd listen, watch others play, practice scales, try song.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Language learning benefits hugely from a multi-pronged approach. Think apps for quick vocab practice, maybe conversation clubs or language partners for speaking, online courses for structured grammar, maybe private lessons for personalized feedback.
There are so many options now.
There really are. And the trick is to experiment and find a mix that works for you. What do you enjoy? What fits your learning style? Some people love grammar drills. Others find them tedious, but thrive on interactive games.
Right. Find methods that you actually look forward to, or at least don't dread.
Exactly. Because that makes consistency easier. And a really vital point that came up repeatedly was, don't wait until you feel ready or perfect to start using the language, especially speaking.
Ah, that classic fear. I'll start speaking when my grammar is better.
Which often means never or much later than necessary. The sources emphasize engaging with all the core skills: listening, reading, speaking, writing, ideally in combination. They feed into each other.
How so? Give me an example.
Okay, well, you might read an article, reading, pick up some new vocabulary, then try using that vocabulary in a conversation, speaking. Or you listen to a podcast, listening, which helps your pronunciation and understanding of natural flow, making your own speaking sound more natural.
It's all interconnected.
Totally. And using different media helps too. Watching videos or movies helps with listening comprehension and understanding context. Podcasts are great for auditory learning on the go.
And what about interaction with people, tutors, groups?
Hugely valuable. A good tutor can give you tailored feedback that apps can't. Conversation groups or language partners provide that essential real-time practice environment. Sharing experiences and challenges in a group can also be really motivating.
So the takeaway is, mix it up. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Use a variety of resources and methods to engage different skills and keep things interesting.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It makes learning more holistic, more engaging, and ultimately more effective.
Okay, now for a big one, maybe the elephant in the room for many learners, practice and mistakes.
Yes. The M word. Our sources were unanimous. You have to practice actively, and you have to make mistakes. It's non-negotiable for progress.
Start speaking from the beginning, even if it feels messy.
Absolutely. Theoretical knowledge is fine, you need some foundation, but language is fundamentally a skill you learn by doing. You can read about swimming all day, but you only learn to swim by getting in the water.
And splashing around a bit, probably swallowing some water.
Exactly. That's the mistake part. And the sources really wanted to destigmatize mistakes. They aren't failures. They are evidence of effort. They show you're trying, you're experimenting, you're pushing your boundaries.
It's hard to internalize that sometimes, though. We're often conditioned to avoid errors.
True. But in language learning, mistakes are signposts. They show you what you haven't quite mastered yet. They are essentially opportunities to learn and adjust.
And it helps to remember that even native speakers mess up.
All the time. We stumble over words, use awkward phrasing, make grammar slips, especially when we're tired or speaking informally. It's normal. So learners shouldn't hold themselves to an impossible standard of perfection.
So embrace the messiness. Okay. What about correcting mistakes? How do we learn from them effectively?
Well, self-correction is powerful. One technique mentioned was recording yourself speaking.
Ooh, that sounds potentially cringe-inducing.
It could feel a bit strange at first, definitely. But listening back allows you to hear yourself more objectively. You might notice pronunciation issues or repeated grammar errors, or perhaps fluency hesitations you weren't aware of while speaking.
Okay, I can see the value. Painful, but potentially useful.
Very useful. And of course, getting feedback from others is crucial too. Teachers, tutors, patient language partners. They can pinpoint things you might miss and explain the corrections.
But the main thing is just speak. Don't let the fear freeze you.
That's the absolute core message. Get the words out. Make the mistakes. Learn from them. Repeat. Daily practice embracing those errors turns them from points of anxiety into steps on the path to improvement.
Right. Mistakes aren't roadblocks, they're stepping stones.
Perfectly put.
This flows really well into our next point, attitude. Cultivating the right mindset. Because fearing mistakes is partly an attitude thing.
It really is. And a big part of the right attitude, according to our sources, is managing expectations. Don't expect perfect fluent English right away or even after a few months.
It's a long game, the marathon, not the sprint idea again.
Exactly. Think about how long it takes a child to become truly fluent in their native language. Years, with constant immersion. We need to grant ourselves that same patience. It's a gradual unfolding.
And avoid comparing ourselves to others. That seems tough online.
It is tough, but so important. Everyone's journey is different backgrounds, different amounts of time, different aptitudes, different opportunities for practice. Comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20 is just demotivating and unfair to yourself.
So the only valid comparison is me today versus me last month.
That's the most productive comparison, yes. Focus on your progress. Are you understanding more, speaking a bit more smoothly, using new words? Celebrate those personal gains.
So how do we actively foster this positive attitude? Any tips from the sources?
Well, consciously accepting mistakes as normal is a big one. Practicing self-compassion. Don't beat yourself up over errors. Be patient with the process. And actively look for and acknowledge your successes, however small they seem. I understood that whole sentence. I used that new phrase.
Keep a little win journal, maybe?
That's a great idea. Anything that helps you recognize your progress. And self-awareness is part of this too.
Meaning
being honest with yourself about what's working, what's not, where you're struggling, and where you're improving. Understanding your own learning process helps you stay engaged and make better decisions.
And support systems help too, right? Friends, family, other learners.
Definitely. Having people who encourage you or fellow learners who understand the ups and downs can make a huge difference to your motivation and resilience when you hit those inevitable plateaus or feel discouraged.
So mindset isn't just fluffy stuff. It directly impacts your willingness to practice, to take risks, and ultimately to learn successfully.
Absolutely. A positive, patient, and persistent attitude is a powerful accelerator for language learning.
Okay, what about this idea of instant results? Sometimes you do feel a quick win, especially early on.
That's true, and our sources acknowledge that. When you first learn basic greetings, how to order a coffee, simple introductions, those things can provide a real, immediate sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. Wow, I just had a mini conversation in English.
Exactly. And those quick wins are important. They build confidence and provide that initial spark of motivation. They show you that communication is possible.
But there's a but.
There's a but. The sources caution against getting lulled into a false sense of rapid progress towards overall fluency based on these initial successes. Mastering the basics is fantastic, but it's just the first layer.
It's the tip of the iceberg.
A good way to put it. Achieving deeper understanding, nuanced expression, handling complex grammar, understanding fast native speech that takes significantly more time and consistent effort. Those quick wins are stepping stones, not the finish line.
So, manage expectation. Enjoy the early victories, but understand they are part of a much longer journey.
Precisely. And sometimes, a good learning strategy might even mean you don't see obvious results for a while. Maybe you're focusing on consolidating grammar or building passive vocabulary. That work is crucial, but the payoff might not be immediately visible in your act of speaking.
Right. It's like building the foundation. necessary work, even if it doesn't look flashy.
Exactly. Patience is required, trusting that the consistent effort, guided by your strategy, is leading to progress, even if it's not always spectacular or instant.
This really brings us full circle back to consistency and maybe even more importantly, perseverance.
Yes. If there's one overarching theme, is that language learning requires showing up consistently over the long haul. It demands perseverance.
Every little bit counts, doesn't it? Every word learned, every listening exercise, every attempt at speaking.
It all adds up. It's cumulative. Our sources emphasize how that steady, persistent effort is what gradually transformed conscious effort into unconscious skill into lasting habits.
And that perspective helps when you feel like progress is slow. Remembering that the gap between where you are now and, say, native level fluency represents years and years of constant exposure and practice for them.
Exactly. It's not magic. It's time and consistent effort. Thinking about it that way can make your own progress feel more achievable and less daunting. You're building brick by brick.
So the motivation really comes from understanding it's a process, trusting the process, and just not giving up.
That's the core of it. Success comes to those who stick with it, through the plateaus, the frustration, the moments of self-doubt. Keep showing up.
Any final tips from the forces on how to maintain that motivation and self-discipline day after day?
Some recurring ideas were: break down big goals into tiny daily actions so it feels manageable. Find an accountability buddy, someone you check in with. Remind yourself regularly why you started learning English. Connect back to your core motivation. Make it enjoyable. Where possible, integrate hobbies like music or movies.
And celebrate those milestones along the way.
Absolutely. Acknowledge how far you've come, not just how far you have to go.
Okay. So, pulling all this together, it seems clear that getting fluent in English isn't about finding one magic bullet.
Definitely not. It's a combination, isn't it?
No.
A smart strategy, clear and motivating goals, consistent daily or regular effort, using a variety of methods.
Being willing to practice and make mistakes, seeing them as learning chances, keeping a positive and patient attitude, understanding progress takes time.
And above all, just persevering, sticking with it. That combination seems to be the real key.
It's a holistic approach, really, addressing not just the what to learn, but the how and the why and the mindset behind it all.
That's a great way to summarize it. It's about building a sustainable and effective learning system for yourself.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you for breaking all that down. I hope everyone listening feels more equipped now.
Me too. Remember, these principles, strategy, goals, consistency, variety, practice, attitude, perseverance, they really do form the bedrock of successful language learning.
So the encouragement is to take these ideas, think about your own learning, and start applying them. Even small changes can make a big difference over time.
Absolutely. Don't try to overhaul everything overnight, perhaps. Pick one area, maybe setting clearer goals this week, or finding 10 minutes for daily practice and build from there.
Excellent advice. Thank you again. And thank you all for joining us for this deep dive. We really hope it helps you on your English journey.
Yes, thanks for listening. Keep reflecting, keep adapting, and keep learning.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive to help you improve your English. Until then, keep at it.
Bye for now.